Hello and welcome to the Tuesday show, the VODTALK news magazine programme. I'm Jenny Fisher, the editor of East London News. So let's have a look at what news we're going to be looking at tonight. Tonight we're going to be looking for having a focus on the United States of America, the end of one era, the start of another. Are they that different? With our guest, our VODTALK regular, Tom Zagoria. And we also have with us tonight Rule Amin, and we're going to start with Rule. Welcome, both of you. But we will start with you. Tom is a little bit further away than Rule, so for some reason he's looking like he's sat in front of a sort of frosted glass panel. But we know what you look like, Tom, so that's that. So we're going to start with Rule. Don't forget, dear listeners, that you can phone into the programme. And we're very happy to have your views. Come and argue with us or suggest something else or tell us something that we don't know yet. You can ring us on 0208 12345 07. That number is on the screen now. So do ring in. We'd love to hear from you. I know you're sometimes a bit shy, but you can access the airwaves direct. But let's start with Rule. Rule, we have been looking at the council agenda. Tower Hamlets' council is happening tomorrow, and you've got an issue has come onto the agenda, which is actually relevant to quite a lot of Londoners, particularly those who insist on driving through East London to reach wherever it is that they are going. And you've put a petition, you're part of a group that's put a petition to the council called Stop the Trial of All the Time Bus Lanes. So what are these bus lanes, Rule? Tell us how they came about. What is this trial?
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Thank you for having me. It's always good to be here on your show, the Tuesday show.
Basically, I'll invite you again if you carry on like this.
Okay. So basically, like I'm activist first and foremost. Yeah. So I get people coming up to me from time to time. They want me to actually do things like such as petition or write to the mayor. Because I represent Labour Party in my locality. I am the current Secretary of Labour, Bainford and Poplar and Limehouse, and also Secretary of Shadwell Labour. When TfL decided to actually go ahead with the trial of the 24-hour bus lanes, people were up in arms. Usually, there would be boxes within the main roads, such as Commercial Road, Bethnal Green Road, Whitechapel Road, where people can park their car, do their shopping, or attend their appointments, wherever that may be. And also, a lot of businessmen have actually approached me, and they're very concerned. They feel like the business will almost close down because some of the businesses have almost gone down by 50%. So as a result, I started this petition with some of my colleagues. And the petition really is petitioning the council to request the mayor of London to stop the trial of all-time bus lanes, which is the 24-hour bus lanes in Tower Hamlets with immediate effect, as this is likely to have an impact on the coronavirus rates, as more people will use buses regularly and therefore come into contact with one another.
This is the question, Rule. I understand that the bus lanes were brought in by Sadiq Khan, not by John Biggs on this occasion. But what was he trying to achieve? Why did he feel the need? Our bus lanes along these big roads used to be sort of only operative from in the morning and in the evening, didn't they? Why has he done this?
Yes, I will definitely answer that, Jenny. So if I just can give you the background for your audience, how this came about. So basically, just give me 2 minutes. So there has been a huge spike in local traffic, in particular at the time of the school runs, and thus potentially increasing risk to the physical safety of parents and children. Local businesses have also been affected by this change. Statistics show that only 37% of households in Tower Hamlets own a car, which is half the national average. This would suggest that the traffic around Tower Hamlets and the resulting air pollution is caused mainly by the drive-through journeys and not necessarily by the people of Tower Hamlets. it is unfair to impose limitations and restrictions to those who have not caused the excessive traffic or the air pollution. London Borough of Newham, Brent, Ealing, Barking, Dagenham, amongst other boroughs, have also have high levels of air pollution. Newham has the worst pollution levels in London, but none of the aforementioned boroughs have the all-time bus lanes. So why was this trial imposed on towns? That's the main question. So basically, the petition is asking the council to actually ask TfL why they decided that Towns was a good place to actually trial this bus lane. People feel very passionate against this bus lane because it's actually killing off the local economy, Jenny. And like a lot of people actually have relatives in town. They'd come to town, park in the 1 hour bays on the main road, and they could visit their relatives, or they could shop in the local shops, which is based on the main roads like Commercial Road, Bethnal Green Road, or Whitechapel Road. But they're not able to do that. And I'm sure you've witnessed it yourself. The traffic really hasn't gone down. If anything, traffic has actually gone up. So that's the main irony. We know from the TfL that TfL, wanted to cut down traffic, but it's actually increased traffic. And a lot of the bus lanes, the cycle lanes that the TfL introduced are not really being properly utilized. So our argument is this is not a good policy because it's we live in one of the biggest cities, one of the most iconic cities in the whole world. And if London doesn't have economy, can you imagine a scenario like that? It's literally killing. I'm not against cycling. I'm an environmentalist myself. I support a lot of policies, environmentalist policy, but I think it's going too far.
Yeah, what I don't understand is why they chose to have this experiment at this time, and what they're trying to get from it. Is it really just an air pollution control mechanism? Do they think they're going to just get more cars off the road, and therefore there'll be less pollution? Or is it trying to make the buses have a clearer run through during the COVID times when they think more people will be on public transport? I don't understand their motivation.
Their argument is to cut down pollution, but if you actually look at the situation practically, there's bumper to bumper traffic on the major roads, which have the 24-hour bus lanes, and we still have a lot of petrol and diesel cars out there. They're actually giving out a lot of carbon emissions. It's not really doing a lot of making a big difference. That's the argument TfL is using, but I really feel that it's counterproductive. It's not really working. And what good is it if we don't have businesses on the main roads, like small businesses? Small businesses play a major part in our economy, especially in London. We can't have businesses closing down. And businesses are literally barely can survive, especially during the lockdown. Even with the support that the government is actually giving and the grants, they barely make a difference. The loans, most of them have actually used up the loans that they took out from the banks. It's a very, very dark situation, Jenny, honestly.
Well, we remember, I'm sure TfL's got the best intentions at heart. Well, that's as much as far as I can go. We did have problems with Sadiq Khan with his infamous "Let's drive a motorway through Fish Island" exercise, and certainly we did refer to that as really an act of vandalism. So that was a sort of an area of fairly low air pollution, and his sort of big road that goes through the island now was designed to bring a lot more through traffic into that area, so he brought in air pollution. So we haven't yet forgiven him for that, and we also know that as you say, a lot of the pollution is down to through traffic. So putting more and more restrictions on the local people isn't really going to affect the pollution, is it? So how do you feel that? How do you feel that small businesses are surviving at this time? Is it really the bus lanes that are causing them the problem, or is it the fact they aren't open anyway?
I mean, it's a double whammy basically. They're in a catch-22 situation. First of all, we have a pandemic. People, a lot of business. We know like more than a million small businesses have actually closed down. Okay, it's really hard as it is, even with the government support, the grants and the loans, and most of the businesses I speak to on a regular basis, because I'm quite well known in town, as a lot of the businessmen come to me and they convey their concerns to me, and I've actually written to the mayor myself, and he, in his reply, he said that it's not his decision, it's the TFL's decision, and he's actually written to the TFL. But my question is, or a lot of the people ask this question, what? Apparently, all the councils which don't have the 24-hour bus lanes, they were actually asked. They had a choice. This is my question too. Why, was the town been given a choice basically, or why was Towns chosen? John Lees, our mayor, could have easily said, no, I don't want this trial in my borough, because at the end of the day, this is a trial. But then he did write to the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, I think a few weeks ago.
You're raising some very interesting questions here, as to why the mayor of London can't exercise some control over TFL. And also, it seems like this is another example of the cooperation between, unique cooperation between City Hall and Mulberry Place in Tower Hamlets. We've had years of not quite understanding why Tower Hamlets has volunteered to take such a large share of the house building across London. We all know we need new homes, and Tom not least. But sometimes it seems that people in Tower Hamlets say that GLA is just throwing out targets that Tower Hamlets has to take. And sometimes it seems that GLA people are saying, oh, but Tower Hamlets offered the targets. And we've never really got to the bottom of who's doing what in Tower Hamlets, who's doing whom a favour. So it's important to raise this sort of issue. Do you think the council is going to debate this tomorrow night? Do you think this is going to be an interesting debate? I've put a link on the comments box so people can actually see the petition that's going to the council. But do you think this is?
Yeah, it's obviously going to be debated, and we will actually find out from the council in due course what they plan to do. But obviously, people aren't happy in terms, especially the small businessmen. They are actually aware that other councils, like I said earlier on, they said no to TFL, because at the end of the day, this is a trial and it's not working. It's anti-economy. We need an economy like in a city like London. We can't have businesses closing down. And I don't know if you know, Jenny, we also had a petition a few months ago on parking restrictions. And this was signed by more than 2,000 people. And luckily, the council listened to us and they put a halt on the changes. Yeah, I'm sure you are actually aware of that. Because again, people weren't happy. It was restricting people from actually, visiting people or visiting businesses. I know so many people come outside of Townless to do their shopping in Townless, you see. So it was killing off local economy, preventing relatives coming over to Townless. So it was very good of the council to actually have changed their mind on that. And also, just for the information, with regards to housing, I also campaigned on housing ban 3. I don't know if you are actually aware, just over a year ago, so the council did actually listen to us again, and they stopped that. They were going to actually abolish all the under 30s applicants who are actually on the waiting list. Yeah. So I'm just glad. Sorry?
That's something that Tom might know about. I was actually going to ask Tom if, when he was living on the Isle of Dogs, if he found that parking was a big issue. Are you there, Tom?
I am here, yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't own a car when I was on the Isle of Dogs, so it wasn't necessarily something that I ran into very much. But I think it's a really important point that Rahul raises, because while there is a pollution crisis in London, and while there is obviously a very urgent climate crisis across the world, I think people might look at it a bit differently if those sacrifices that are needed were being shared, if the urgent action was being taken against, I don't know, City of London banks who are investing in fossil fuels, or urgent action to for renewable energy and maybe subsidised electric cars for poor and working class communities. But instead, the immediate sacrifices that are being put are on primarily working class communities and primarily BAME communities in many cases. So I think Rahul makes some really important points with that. But I have no personal experience of owning a car in this country, I'm afraid.
So, yes, you're one of the, what was it, 53%, no, more than that, 63% non-car owners in Tower Hamlets. So, well, look, thank you very much for raising this issue with us, Rule. People can actually tune into the council meeting. It's going to be a remote meeting anyway, and people can watch the debate. I must say, previous debates on at council meetings, I have found really quite flat. We did have Councillor Andrew Wood on the programme last year talking about the parking issue. And sometimes you go to a council meeting and one person says something, and then another person says the same thing, and another person says the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see what you can actually pull out of the debate. But you're not going to present the petition yourself, are you, Rule? Somebody else has got to speak up for you. Why is that? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
The rule as it stands. So because I presented a petition within the last 3 months, I'm not actually allowed to actually present. So somebody else actually will present it on our behalf. So that's the way things are. I just want to add, Jenny, besides the businesses closing, I know so many people are self-employed, private hire drivers, minicab drivers, delivery drivers, who have been affected by the 24-hour bus lanes as well. They've, written to me. They've, called me up, messaged me to say they want me to do something. So this petition came about through all these concerns that came to me from different angles, if you like. And a lot of the people I know have stopped working. There's barely any work for drivers, delivery drivers, or private hire drivers. A lot of them have stopped working. A lot of them have actually left the trade. It's bad as it is with the pandemic, Jenny. And one thing I don't get, why TfL, why the government has to actually, make these changes now. We're in an emergency situation. I just don't get it. It just doesn't add up.
Well, let's see if we can find it. Let's see if TfL will answer the press, and we'll ask them a question as well from East London News. Ask them why they're doing this. That would be interesting. As you say, it doesn't show a lot of sensitivity. The council meeting, I think it's once every 2 months, and it's about 3 hours long, and 12 minutes are devoted, I think, to petitioners being able to speak. And it's a shame, really.
It's actually every month.
Yeah, is it? No.
Yeah, every month. Yes, the council meeting is every month. Yes.
Oh, I missed that. I think it was every month.
Yeah. So the way it works is I've done a recent presentation on a petition back in October, and it was actually closed down Wadley Market COVID Test Centre.
Oh yeah.
Because it was located, in a very busy place within there's a market and
busy market. Yeah.
Yes, and also there's street right next to the COVID Test Centre where all the elderly live. Yeah.
Yes.
The cemetery live. So and again, people came to me and they wanted me to actually do a petition. So I did that. So I presented that back in October. So basically, they give you 3 minutes to present your case, and then there's another 4 minutes for questioning. So any councillor can actually question it for 4 minutes. So altogether, about 7 to 10 minutes, I think they allow you.
Yeah, I've got a horrible feeling that I might be responsible myself for the introduction of the 3-month rule. I know when we were having problems with one housing group on the island, we had to take a number of petitions to the council, and it was the poor councillors, I think, might have felt every meeting they went to, there was me popping up, telling them something else they'd done wrong about their housing policy. So, and shortly after that, there was a review of the council procedures, and that's when this rule came in that you weren't allowed to speak more than once every 3 months, or I think it might have even been 6 months to begin with. So if it is my fault, I do apologise. If anyone's listening from the council and has got a different reason why that happened, then do feel free to ring in. So anyway, people can use the link at the bottom of in the comments box to get onto the petition. You can go onto the council website and watch the council meeting, and we'll keep an eye out for the result and hope to come to that next week. But we need now to turn our attention to a different subject. You're welcome to stay with us, Rule, as we talk about the United States of America. But first of all, I'm going to go to Tom. We know that you spent most of your life in the United States. You've seen it firsthand, although the United States, of course, is not a uniform country. You lived in a bit of the country that is not necessarily replicated elsewhere in terms of the conditions. And so I just wanted to ask you, first of all, to comment, if you would, on what do you think Donald Trump's legacy is? We're just coming to the end of his last day in office, at least for this term. How do you think it's gone down? What's his legacy going to be, Tom?
I think it's gonna depend, to be honest, and it's gonna depend more on what happens after he leaves office than on what happened while he was in office. His actual implementation of policy during his regime was chaotic at best. I don't think he necessarily achieved a huge amount of what he promised, certainly not publicly. He did achieve quite a lot of what he promised privately to his private donors, with swathing tax cuts to the rich, obviously. But in terms of what happens next, I think that's going to really define what happens with American politics, because if he's able to leave office, remain consequential, keep that kind of populist, anti-establishment political movement that he has been able to generate as a force in American politics, still undermining all of these basic principles of the American system, then that is going to keep things quite shaken up. And I think the fact that you have conspiracy theories like QAnon, which is basically, for those who aren't aware, quite a wide-ranging internet conspiracy theory that the Democratic Party and some major corporations are involved in a giant kind of pedophile ring, which involves Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and huge numbers of politicians. And the idea that this is what's running American politics and Donald Trump was part of a secret underground war to fight against it, that conspiracy theory has several adherents in the Republican Party in Congress. If that's what our politics looks like going forward, then I think we're in a completely different world to where we were before Donald Trump came in.
So are the Democrats right to try to impeach him to keep him out of office?
I think at this point, yes, it's absolutely worth doing. I think there's going to be constitutional questions around whether it can be done, especially if it's done after he's already left office. I think it could be consequential if he is barred from having, being able to run again. But on the other hand, is that just going to mean that Donald Trump Jr. runs in 2024? Having captured just the same slice of the Republican base, which is around 60 to 80% of the Republican base, that were approving of Donald Trump's tenure. So I think it's probably worth doing, but I don't think it would necessarily remove the threat that Donald Trump's whole mission poses to the future of American politics.
Yes. Rule, are you still with us? Yes. Do you have a view on this, Rule? Do you think they're right to go ahead with impeachment?
I think so. I would agree, because obviously, he has actually sort of done things which we never saw in America. He's shamed his own party, the Republican Party, as a vain person. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I've always tweeted or posted statuses on my Facebook page against the administration. We know, he will leave behind a legacy where, he would be known as one of the most racist presidents in the U.S. history, and one of the most vile presidents. He made so many vile comments against women, against Mexicans, against Black people. It was almost unheard of, and the whole world was in shock when Donald Trump came to power, especially the BAME community around the world. We were in shock, and I, for one, I never thought in my wildest dreams Donald Trump would actually win, but he did win in the end of the day. But I think he would go down as one of the worst presidents because he is being impeached twice now. No other president has been impeached twice, and I do support that. Whatever the Democratic Party is doing, I do support it, because we can't have America, because at the end of the day, the whole world actually looks towards America for democracy, for many values and ethos.
Do you think so? Let me pick you up on that, Rule. I've just posted a comment on the Facebook page, giving a link to an article by Milan Rai, who is the editor of a magazine called Peace News, which has been going for many years. And Milan is a great anti-war activist from back in the day. And I just looked up his article. He commented on the violence. He said that after the storming of the Capitol, Mike Pence came out and said to the people who'd broken into the Capitol, "You did not win. Violence never wins." And Biden came out and said, "The scenes of chaos do not reflect the true America. They don't represent who we are." And then Milan just goes through all the times that the United States of America has been violent and overthrown governments overseas. He begins in 1953. Milan is always thorough when he writes. And he begins in 1953 with Iran, and he goes on through Vietnam, and he goes on through Chile, the other 9/11, and he goes on, what's he done in office? He supported Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Why has he done that? He supported Erdogan in Turkey. I don't know. Erdogan is a whole program on his own, which we're not going to have. But so I'm not sure which bit of the world actually does look towards the United States of America with any great hope. So, Tom, do you look towards the United States of America with any great hope for international democracy?
I don't. I don't. Generally speaking, I was saying this generally.
Yeah.
But yes, you're very right. America has actually overthrown governments through violence. We've seen it in the history, even in America. People have actually overthrown governments in America in the past. You know this, Jenny, and I'm sure Tom knows this. So this is America at its best. Maybe it took some time for this to happen. And the funny thing is, even the Simpsons actually, they predicted this many years back. Believe me or not, there was a cartoon on how people would actually storm the Capitol.
I vaguely remember that, but I could never. I'm afraid I don't understand the Simpsons. I may be unique in this, but so I can't comment on that. Tom, what was it like growing up in the United States? Did you feel that your country, inverted commas, your country was a benign influence on the world, or was there any sort of resonance whereby there was local opposition, domestic internal opposition to this warmongering?
There was certainly internal opposition. I mean, particularly we had, before Trump, we had obviously Obama, who won a Nobel Peace Prize just by getting into office, and then promptly started plenty of wars in Libya and other parts of the world. Before him was George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and the neoconservative administration of the US, when everyone thought, oh God, it can't get any worse than this. And now we've got Donald Trump. So America absolutely has a long history. There was a lot of opposition to that from, I think, the grassroots, from most people in the US quickly began to feel like the Iraq war, the war in Afghanistan, that these were terrible mistakes, even from an American perspective, much less obviously from the perspective of the people living in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think it's instructive that so many American politicians and journalists have been tweeting out scenes of the Capitol and saying, oh God, this looks like Baghdad. Well, America might have something to do with that as well. I think one thing that is worth noting in America was that Donald Trump didn't bring into existence all of these defects in America's, I mean, I don't even necessarily want to call it a democracy, to be honest. The fact is, I think I read somewhere that the average American congressman spends 5 hours a day making phone calls asking for donations. That's 5 hours out of their working day asking for donations, and all of those calls are made on a list asking for donations of $1,000 or more to their campaign. They're not talking to average American voters, whatever those average American voters are expressing. They are talking to those people who can afford to donate that amount of money. And that's one reason why when Donald Trump ran in 2016, he actually got quite successful and made a lot of ground by saying, I'm going to fund my own campaign. That means I can do what I want, and I'm not going to listen to those big political donors who are funding Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now we've got Joe Biden. He's certainly an improvement on Trump in my eyes, but I don't think that we should have any illusions about who he's going to be representing and what sort of policies we're going to see going forward from him.
Well, that sort of takes us a step forward, really, onto sort of beginning to look at Joe Biden. We've seen. I mean, sure, we all welcome Joe Biden's statement that he's going to lift the travel ban on Muslim countries, people who are traveling from Muslim countries to the United States. Going to be that blanket ban is going to go, although obviously not a lot of people are going to be doing traveling at the moment anyway. But I mean, so let's welcome that from Joe Biden. But on the other hand, is he going to do anything concrete, anything tangible to respond to some of the Black Lives Matter movement's demands? Rule, what do you think on that?
Time will tell. We have to wait and see as to how far he goes. But obviously, we can only hope, Jenny. I'm sure Joe Biden's administration will be much better than Donald Trump's. We can't actually expect miracles to happen, but I think he's much more better than Donald Trump. I'm sure we all will agree. At least Joe Biden has promised that after the inauguration, he will actually re-sign the Paris Agreement on climate. That's a very important issue because we know, like, it's common sense. You know, most people, most scientists, most leaders agree that we have global warming. And there you have Trump, totally denying the fact that global warming is real. So we really can't have a joker like him, around. I'm sorry, I have to use this word. I've met a lot of Americans who actually shifted here to live in the UK. After Donald Trump became the president in the United States. But anyway, I think we can only hope for the better, and we can hope that at least for Muslims, like he was a very extreme anti-Muslim president. I hope that they actually withdraw the ban from the Muslim countries. I'm a Muslim myself, so it affects me. I know people who've actually traveled to the States from this country, and just because they have a Muslim name, they were questioned for like hours on end. It was worse. It was bad before, but it became worse during the Trump.
Absolutely,
and that's one of the reasons it really prevented me from going. Really puts you off.
Well, I've never gone to the United States because I don't like to go outside E14 if I can help it. But also because I think, sorry, Tom, but I do think that while I haven't actually gone there and seen it myself, I can still cling to some vestige of hope that perhaps it doesn't actually exist. It's not there. But that's just a very interesting.
Also, Jenny, they were so anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim. Like a few senior figures within the Muslim community, they were actually stopped at the airport in Heathrow. Like that's how bad it was for the Muslims. So imagine a person living here who has a British passport, can't even actually go to US. And if you have a person who's from a Muslim country, from the Middle East, almost like impossible for them to actually go to.
There's certainly there's a lot of examples of that, isn't there, in all directions. Yes, the other sort of welcome thing about Biden is the climate change. That's hopefully getting a better attitude on that. I actually remember during the 1980s, before climate change became an issue. I'm no fan of Ben Elton as a novelist, but that's my sort of generation. He did actually write a novel, didn't he, about the capitalist classes letting climate change run riot because they were actually plotting secretly to all move to another planet. And not I'm suggesting that Elon Musk is actually in read that novel. I have no idea, but that was certainly something that used to inform us when we were younger. So let's put climate change down on the positive side. If you've got any, dear listener, if you've got any anything that you would like to ask or contribute that you think we can hope for from Joe Biden, it's your last chance to ring in. It's 0208 1234507. But Tom, what can you add to the list? We've got climate change on there as a positive. What can you add to this? Is there anything else that we can hope for from Biden as a good thing?
Well, I think that really depends. Like Raul said, we have to wait and see. But I think the reason we have to wait and see is Biden and the team around him very much represent the wing of American capitalism that has some connection with reality, which has been lost, I think, by Trump and the vast majority of the Republican Party. So it's a, Biden is very much representing those big corporate interests, but he's maybe representing those big corporate interests who look at runaway climate change and think, well, this is a long-term threat to our profits. We've got to do something about it. Biden does genuinely have some links with the organized working class and the trade union movement. He's appointed Marty Walsh as his Secretary of Labour, who is, I think, in the UK would qualify as quite a right-wing union leader, but is a genuine union leader who is, pushing for unionization. So I think that's something that I'm very interested in. Will Biden be a real friend of organized Labour, like he has promised to be, to an extent that even Obama and Hillary Clinton and previous Democratic candidates for quite a while haven't? I think one thing which I'm also very interested to see is, at the minute, Joe Biden seems to be including elements of the left to an extent in his coalition, particularly by allowing Bernie Sanders to be the chair of the very important Senate Budget Committee, which in the absolute I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word on the program to describe it, but in that of American democracy, when you have the House of Representatives and the Senate having to compromise and go through all of these different stages to make any legislation go through, the Senate Budget Committee is what basically decides what the compromise is. So previously, when Republicans have controlled it, they've used it to just throw into the budget a load of tax cuts for billionaires. Is Bernie Sanders going to be able to throw into the budget things which would actually benefit working people? And is Joe Biden and even the people, some of the corporate class who are backing him, going to accept that on the basis that we need that to recover from a coronavirus pandemic? How much power Bernie Sanders has, that's a real question mark for me, particularly things are so split and so many Democrats in the Senate are so, frankly, right-wing, but that's a potential sign of hope.
Well, Biden's starting point was that he was standing for workers and for the values that we need to bridge the division. So that's sort of where we are on the workers. I think you're quite hopeful there, more hopeful than I would be. But let's go to Mr. Really Hopeful on the other side. Rule, bridging division. We know he's appointed Kamala Harris. She will be sworn in tomorrow as his vice president, and I think he's appointed another member of his team is of Bangladeshi heritage. I'm sorry, the name escaped me. I just saw it in passing. Do you think Biden can bridge division actually in US society and therefore set an example to the world?
I mean, nothing will actually be done overnight, and things need time to change. At least he's made a start. He's doing the right thing. He's end of the day, anybody, other than Trump, personally, I think is better. Personally, my personal choice would have been Bernie Sanders, like Tom suggested earlier. I'm a big fan of Bernie Sanders. I still actually follow him regularly. So I think he will actually bring about a lot of change. When I speak to people from different countries, people almost feel like a sigh of relief that Trump is no longer with us. So I believe he will try, but then again, he does has his restrictions because, like Tom says, he has to please his donors, his backers, and there are big lobbyists out there. So he has to balance it, and I think he's looking like a person, a president who will try and sort of forge alliances rather than sort of break them. To me, he comes across like that. But don't expect miracles. I think when Obama first became the president, people were almost expecting miracles to happen in America and around the world, but nothing like that happened. So similarly, I think with Biden, but with Biden, his beginning was quite humble. Although he became a senator at a very young age, he's worked his way up. He's a very hard-working man. He has to balance a lot of things as a president of one of the most powerful countries in the world, and he's more diplomatic. He has all the right qualities to be a good president. I think he's not perfect. No, I'm not saying he's perfect. Everybody has their shortcomings.
You're both so optimistic. I don't know. I think I want to throw. I mean, there's an idea that it may be that Trump is actually more dangerous out of office than in, because I mean, Biden has got a number of challenges. He has said he wanted to set up a national coronavirus test and trace system. He has said he wants to raise the minimum wage. On the other hand, he's also said he wants to build a better relationship with NATO. So, it really is very small and incremental. But in the coronavirus crisis, he's not going to be able to keep that economy on the up. And Trump is just going to be there talking lies and rubbish again, isn't he? What's he going to whip up? Never mind QAnon, there's all the different right-wing groups. We could actually see that Capitol Hill riot replicated throughout the states, couldn't we, Tom? Will they take to the streets?
Well, I mean that's a big question. I would say just in answer to your point about us being unduly optimistic, I think you had asked us for what were the wins apart from climate change that we were going to see. So we certainly haven't gotten to the losses yet. I think it's a big question what we'll see going forward, particularly as there's been a trend, I think, in American politics for a lot of politics to be taken out of the realm of congressional debates and politicians in suits, and a lot more of American politics is happening on the streets than it was before. Both the bad, what we saw with the attempted coup in the Capitol, and the, in my view, certainly good with the almost insurrectionary movements in many cases of Black Lives Matter activists against a rigged and systemically racist criminal justice system. And so what we're going to see going forward, I'm really not sure. I think one thing which I saw the other day, which was quite shocking in many ways, was 12 members of Joe Biden's inauguration presidential security team have been removed after an FBI investigation found that they all had links or had posted on social media positive things about far-right groups. 12 is quite a high number for a security detail, and that's the place that the American establishment, the American security establishment, and I think it's quite likely that's replicated across the military, across huge swathes of American life. That's where they are, that they're, not just a threat to the left, they're a threat to someone who really represents the establishment, like Joe Biden.
I can't get my head around what you're saying, Tom. I remember 20, 30 years ago, we used to have a very racist police force, and there were a number of campaigns about that. And eventually, thanks to the brilliant work of Doreen Lawrence, in my opinion, we finally broke through and came across this notion that the police were institutionally racist. And we made a qualitative leap forward in how the police treated issues of race and colour. But in the States, it seems still to be really embedded in the law enforcement agencies that they are all powerful and that they have the rights. I haven't counted the number of black people who've been clearly abused on the streets, killed on the streets by the police. It's just too high. Is it really like that in the States? How can this be in a country which has been so mixed for so long? How can this racism still be so entrenched in its institutions?
I mean, America is a country that was founded on slavery. That was written in the original Constitution, that slavery was there and that the slave trade was allowed to continue for another 40 years. That was written by the founding fathers into the American Constitution. It's in many ways, systemic racism is fundamental to the DNA of the United States of America. And so removing that takes a huge amount of work. I certainly think that, the UK absolutely has problems as well. And there have been some pretty horrific videos which have come out recently of racist arrests happening by the Metropolitan Police and in the UK. But, in the US, you're absolutely right to say that on a really huge scale, there is a massive gulf between American security forces and police, and particularly communities of color across the US. And that's only going to be challenged by more organization and I think things like the Black Lives Matter protests, people taking that into their own hands and forcing that change in the balance of power on their own right. It's certainly not going to come, in my view, from some pronouncement from a Joe Biden administration, which is really not going to challenge that systemic racism in any fundamental way. And I would say as well, I think it's not a Biden administration that's going to challenge many special interests. If you just look at the number of people around the Biden cabinet who worked for BlackRock, which is a corporate lobbying and kind of hedge fund firm, which has wings in all elements of security agencies, has interests in fossil fuel industries. It's a revolving door between corporate lobbyists and the people at the top of the Biden administration. And so certainly you asked before for the wins. I think there are a lot of losses I would expect. And I think you're right as well to say Trump is still going to be there. He's still going to be inflaming, his base and a huge percentage of America. And even when Obama was elected in 2008 and there was all that momentum in 2010, there was a big return for the Republican Party, helped by gerrymandering, but they won back the House of Representatives and meant that Obama couldn't do anything for his remaining years. So I certainly wouldn't expect Biden to have a very long honeymoon if he's got one at all.
At all, yeah. I'll come back to you both for last words in a second, but I mean, just sort of taking that a bit further, I think the problem with Obama was having motivated this following and raised expectations. He then, on day one, as soon as he was elected, he basically stood everyone down. Actually, pretty much like John McDonnell did after his first attempt to become Labour Party leader. That's a different story. Biden hasn't even raised a movement. And I question whether people will actually be able to organise and make demands on Biden to become more radical or more liberal if they're looking over their shoulder at what the extreme right are doing under the leadership still of Donald Trump. And as you say, man's got a large family, Trump and the Trumpists. So, so as usual, I'm really pessimistic about it. Things can only get worse. Rule, what's your final say on the matter? It's good to have a black or a vice president of Black and Asian heritage. Can Biden actually bridge division? I know you say we have to wait and see, but can't we organise something more active to try and force the issue? Should we send Keir Starmer over there? You're the Labour Party man. What do you think about that? Do you think that'll help?
Yeah. Thanks, Jenny. So basically my last words would be, and I think, like I said earlier on, anyone apart from Trump, So, Biden isn't the perfect president I would want personally, but he is a lot more better than Trump. I think, I live by, politics of hope. A lot of people around the world, we hope for good things and we live by good things over politics of fear. So I feel that, we will have to wait and see, and as to what sort of policies he comes up with, and whether he can build bridges. Obviously, he's actually signaling that he will actually join NATO or become more friendlier with NATO and other countries, which Trump has actually totally abandoned within the alliance that America had. Obviously, he's already promised to actually invest billions in renewable energy, so that's a good thing. He's as a BAME person, I'm happy that his vice president, he's a colored person. In America, they call it colored. We say BAME. She's of Indian and I think Jamaican heritage. And there's also another person who's from Bangladeshi heritage. That's a good sign. At least he's trying to sort of have a multicultural team. So we can only hope, Jenny. We can only hope, and let's see if things work out. But like we discussed earlier, if Trump is active behind the scenes, God knows what can happen. He is a very powerful man. At the end of the day, he has a lot of money. He has a lot of big time backers. So anything can happen. So we can only hope. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's Zain Sadiq, who's going to be the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. That's the person we've been speaking to. Maybe he'll come on the Tuesday show and tell us what it's like over here. So, Tom, looking back across the pond, where would you rather be politically active? I know you're politically active, Tom. Would you rather do it in the States, go back to the States and do it there for a while? Or do you think that it's more fun, there's more chance of progress here in the UK?
I think it's a really good question, actually, because while the political spectrum as a whole is probably further to the left, less far to the right in this country than it is in the US. In the US, we have seen really significant, Joe Biden didn't start talking about climate change on his own. That came from a broader climate movement, the climate strikes, huge grassroots pressure. He didn't start talking about racial justice on his own, certainly. That came from the Black Lives Matter movement and pressure from below. And I think America has been a real case in point, from racial justice and climate justice to the teachers' strikes, really bring organized labor back from the brink in the States, of how the grassroots can really influence politics at the top. So even if we don't have too much hope in the American system at the top, there is perhaps more avenue at the moment for influence to be brought from the bottom. Whereas in the UK, I think we've seen a bit of a retrenchment with Keir Starmer back into the politics of the politics of the focus group and the politics of which politician has the smarter suit, and that's not necessarily a step forward, in my opinion. But one thing that I would say just finally is a slightly pessimistic note. On your note of calling this our final words on the program, I hope that's not too literal, because remember, this is the last night that Donald Trump will have the nuclear codes for quite a while at least. So fingers crossed. Let's just wait until tomorrow.
Let's hope he's not trying to go out with a bang, shall we? Yes. Thank you both for coming on today. It's not quite the end of the programme, but I've just got 1 minute of something to show the viewers. But certainly, I mean, you two are welcome to stay and watch, but if not, if you want to go your separate ways now, thank you very much for coming on, and let's keep us in touch with what's going on. Raul, we look forward to watching your petition you've been part of, being moved at the council meeting tomorrow, and let's see what happens to it. And Tom, why don't you come back in 6 months? Let's make a date. Come back in 6 months, and we'll see how far Biden has got. So thank you for that, and I'm sure we'll carry on discussing it. And I just want to flag up now, it's the Tuesday show, it's your show. We are trying to involve you, the community, in give you this platform to sort of promote your concerns. And just to say that next week we shall be looking a little bit more closely at COVID in East London and how the communities are surviving with COVID, and how the lockdown regulations are being experienced actually by us on the streets. I mean, there's a lot of protests going around, at people noticing a lot of people who are not staying indoors, people noticing terrible observance of the regulations still in shops. We're going to be investigating that over the next few days and coming back to you with a report on that. So do get in touch with us at East London News if you have seen something in Tower Hamlets or elsewhere in East London which has disturbed you about how the COVID regulations are being observed. If there's any shops that are not implementing the restrictions, then we'll get in touch with them and ask them what's going on, see if we can actually make a real improvement. So we have got a couple of other topics lined up for next week as well, but just to give you a little taster, we're going to show you a short video now. It's only 1 minute long, of how the community's been coping on the Isle of Dogs in the famous E14 area. And it's just a little comment from Maya Mia, former council on the island, who will be with us next week. And so if you'd just like to just enjoy what he has to say about COVID on the Isle of Dogs for a minute, we'll play that now, please.
Hi friends, this is Mayum from the Island Network. I would like to take this opportunity just to inform everyone of the fantastic work our group of volunteers have been doing since the lockdown began. We have supported the over 13,000 food packs to the vulnerable residents of Isle of Dogs. And this was only possible because of our dedicated, excellent group of local volunteers who have given so much time and effort to help the vulnerable residents. I would also like to thank our donors, like One Housing, Canary Wharf Group, and local businesses. Without their support, it would have been impossible to deliver such a wonderful project. The future is very uncertain, but one assurance I can give you and our group of volunteers, that we will remain on the ground helping the residents, vulnerable residents, as long as it takes.
So there you are. Thank you for watching. United in serving the community. Is that what it's come to? That we have to now rely on ourselves rather than all those institutions that should be helping us keep safe in the borough? I don't know. We'll look at that next week. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you back again actually twice next week. Tomorrow, VODTALK Facebook page will be live streaming the inauguration of the US new president and vice president. That will start at, I think, around about 4:30. So just keep an eye on the podcasts on the VODTALK Facebook page for that programme, and you'll see what's going on. It's not too long. It's been streamed, pulled back inauguration, so that'll go on for about an hour. See the dawn of a new era. And then next week we'll be back with our Tuesday show, as I've said, and we think we're going to do a Tuesday show special on Thursday when we've got some really exciting guests. We're going to again be looking at the Julian Assange issue and trying to look at some of the underlying issues, the underlying consequences of what's going on, things that we didn't really have time to go into in depth during our last programme. So thanks for bearing with us, and we'll see you on at least one, if not all, of our programmes over the next 2 weeks. Thank you and good night.